Why Mimikyu was banned from 1v1 by Elo Bandit. Mimikyu suspect test. So several members of the Showdown and Smogon communities raised the issues that Mimikyu was too powerful, too meta-defining, and too difficult to counter consistently. The Smogon 1v1 leadership announced Mimikyu's public suspect test late September, and it ran through early October, with the requirements being 75% GXC or win rate over a minimum of 100 games. The suspect test concluded October 9th, and on the following day, the Immortal announced that with a 60% supermajority, Mimikyu had successfully been banned from the 1v1 metagame. So, the question is, did Mimikyu deserve to be banned? And if so, why? Mimikyu was seen as overpowered in the 1v1 metagame for several reasons. First of all, its amazing ability Disguise gives it a free turn to set up a move of its choice, be it Curse, Sword Stance, Bulk Up, Will-O-Wisp, Thunderwave, etc. Its unique Z move, Let's Snuggle Forever, is a 190 base power fairy move off of a 90 base attack stat, which by itself is pretty cool, but with that extra turn to set up is absolutely devastating to any opposition. It has alternate offensive options, like 140 base power Never-Ending Nightmare to hit fairy resists, and Mimikyu acts as a 96 base speed trapper with the combination of Curse, Substitute, and Protect. Curse puts a timer on the opponent, making them last only 4 or 5 turns depending on their HP, whereas Mimikyu drops its HP to half immediately and then stalls out turns with Protect, Sub, etc. Mimikyu also has alternate curse sets involving Thunderwave that allow it to slow down faster Pokemon and hacks them to death with the same curse stalling set. Mimikyu peaked number 1 in usage at 18%, edging out Charizard, Gyarados, and Dragonite, the other most popular Pokemon of 1v1. Lastly, very few counters exist to all Mimikyu's movesets, as something that beats an offensive Fairyum set is likely to lose to a defensive Curse set. This is the triangle of Mimikyu that displays its primary possible sets. So up at the top left, Ghostium Offensive baits in Mimikyu's Fairy Resists and has really good offensive capabilities, what with its Never-Ending Nightmare, Shadow Sneak, Sword Stance, and all that jazz. Ghostium Curse is great at surprising defensive checks to Curse Q that rely on recovery. So if something is stalling out Curse with something like Synthesis or Moonlight or Soft-Boiled, you can simply kill it with your offensive Z move once its HP is relatively low. The full Curse Stall Mimikyu has many variations, including Shadow Sneak, Taunt, Leftovers, Pinch Berries, and different types of herbs. So it can be very hard to predict and very hard to play around. Mimikyu Offensive, up at the top right, is the gold standard for Boost and Nuke. It's able to take on the likes of Dragonite, Gyarados, and Zygarde with either Sword Stance Mimikyu or Bulk Up Mimikyu. Mimikyu Curse kind of takes the best of both worlds, able to stall out slower threats and still nuke things at maximum power. But wait, there's more! Thunderwave Ghostium Z Curse Mimikyu beats fast Pokemon, so it speed traps Pokemon that are faster than itself by slowing them down with Thunderwave, spamming Substitute until they're fully paralyzed, Ghostium Z cursing back to full HP and then half, putting a curse on the opponent, and then stalling out turns with Sub and Protect, just like regular Curse Mimikyu. Terrifying, right? Thunderwave Pain Split Let's Snuggle Forever or Never-Ending Nightmare Mimikyu cheeses some unwinnable matchups with random number generation. Just throw some Thunderwave RNG in there, see if you get lucky with Paralysis, and then just end up taking the match due completely to RNG. Defensive Bulk Up Mimikyu beats most, if not all, Mega Gyarados, able to just bulk up as it dances, and then kill it with the super effective Z move. Defensive Will-O-Wisp and Fairy Z Charm beats physical checks like Scarf Excadrill, which you thought probably beat Mimikyu. Special defensive Phydium Z beats stuff like Magnezone, that can't quite KO it, and then end up tanking the unexpected super effective Z move. Specially defensive Let's Snuggle Forever or Never-Ending Nightmare Z move beats stuff like Tapus and Primarina. And lastly, White Herb beats Rock Tomb or other speed control. I've included some sample sets so that you can see what kind of movesets Mimikyu actually used and what sort of items and moves it ran. These movesets aren't actually legal anymore since Mimikyu has been banned, but they're still interesting to look at. Also included in the description is a list of proper Mimikyu counters. This is a very extensive list that I put together over a long period of time, and you can find a whole bunch of different sets that do technically edge out every single form of Mimikyu, with some form of speed control or defense or taunt. These Pokemon are all capable of beating all of Mimikyu's primary sets, not necessarily its secondary sets like full special defense or full physical defense with Z, Charm, and Will-O-Wisp. However, they will get the job done against everything else. From a team building perspective, a team must have either a Mimikyu hard counter or multiple Mimikyu checks, one for each possible moveset. And with a team size of only 3 Pokemon, this severely limits your building options. If you have multiple checks, you have to guess which set Mimikyu is using during team preview. So let's talk about some of the actual hard counters to Mimikyu, because they do exist and they're worth some discussion. So Choice Band or Steelium Z Excadrill is enough to take out Mimikyu. What with having Mold Breaker, ignoring Disguise, this is one of the guaranteed ways to take it out in one hit. Defensive Flame Charge Mega Charizard X or Y can boost up their speed as they break Mimikyu's Disguise, which lets them land a huge Fire Nuke the following turn and KO the Mimikyu. Mega Venusaur, as long as it's bulky enough and is carrying Synthesis, can stall out any Curse shenanigans successfully, and it can threaten Mimikyu with super effective Sludge Bomb. 128 speed invested Heatran with a Rock Tomb and Taunt is able to beat both forms of Mimikyu. Even though Rock Tomb is not guaranteed to break a substitute, having Taunt will let you stop a Curse set from successfully stalling out. A huge 220 defense stat, Water EMZ, plus HP Steel, plus Shadow Sneak Greninja can get the job done by starting with Hidden Power Steel to turn itself into a Steel type, absorb a Z move, and then nuke Mimikyu's now unprotected body with Water EMZ. Shadow Sneak is useful versus Thunder Wave matchup. Max HP Steel types with Taunt are able to resist Mimikyu's primary stab and taunt it out of any sort of stalling shenanigans, almost always earning the win in that matchup. Choice Brand, Mold Breaker, Iron Tail Haxorus is guaranteed to win this matchup, provided that it lands the 75% accurate Iron Tail. Maximum HP and defense, Toxapex with Recover and Haze is pretty much guaranteed to beat Mimikyu, as Mimikyu simply can't really threaten it. Offensive isn't going to work as Haze prevents any setup, and Curse isn't going to work as Recover heals twice the damage that Curse deals per turn. Magnezone, as a fast, modest Electroweb Z Zap Cannon set, is able to break Mimikyu's sub guaranteed with Electroweb, and OHKO all but the most fully special defensive sets with Z Zap Cannon. And then also, Fake Out Giga Impact Megalopony is able to KO virtually all but the most physically defensive Mimikyu in one hit, and even though the Curse Stall set can protect on the Fake Out, the Curse Stall set does not have enough defensive capability to tank a Giga Impact. I think there are a couple of matchups that are worth a little bit of a deeper look into, and the first one of these is Mega Gyarados. So Mega Gyarados beats most Curse and Ghost DMZ Mimikyu thanks to its Mold Breaker and its crazy offenses, what with its Dragon Dance, Waterfall, Crunch, all that good stuff. However, Bulk Up Mimikyu MZ Mimikyu beats Gyarados. If Gyarados wants to win against all Mimikyu, it has to run a max defense bulky spread, speed benchmarked 214, which is outspeeding Adamant Mimikyu, carrying Dragon Dance, Taunt, and Iron Head. Gyarados must not Mega Evolve early in battle, or it risks dying to Let's Snuggle Forever. The other matchup that's worth a closer look is the Mega Metagross matchup. So Mega Metagross beats most Curse and Mimikyu MZ Mimikyu thanks to its Steel typing and priority, along with its crazy huge defense stat. However, Bulk Up Wisp Ghost DMZ Mimikyu beats Mega Metagross since its Never-Ending Nightmare is super effective against Metagross's secondary Psychic typing. If Metagross wants to win against all Mimikyu, it has to run max HP and invest heavily into defense, while hitting a speed benchmark of 292, carrying Iron Head, Bullet Punch, Substitute, and Bulldoze. The point that I'm trying to make by looking closer into these matchups is that the Pokemon that are supposed to beat Mimikyu have to run extremely specialized sets both in moves and EVs in order to guarantee that matchup. So basically what I'm trying to illustrate is that Mimikyu warped the meta around itself by forcing players to build movesets and teams in a suboptimal way focused on speed control, defense, and utility for the express purpose of countering Mimikyu's myriad of potential movesets. When every team is built around a Mimikyu counter, the meta starts to degrade. So overall, was the ban justified? I think that based on its metagame dominance, moveset versatility, reliance on RNG with Thunderwave, unpredictability factor, and strain on team building, Mimikyu deserved to be banned from 1v1. What can we expect from a post-Mimikyu metagame? Well, with Mimikyu expelled from the tier, we can expect to see a rise in usage of the Pokemon that Mimikyu was keeping down, namely Dragonite, Gyarados, and their respective counters, Tapu Lele, Wisp Charizard, Megaerna, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Metagross, Tapu Fini, and Mega Lopunny. Expect the metagame to move slightly away from speed control, like Rock Tomb and Flame Charge and all that, and back towards bulky offense, heavily featuring setup and Z-moves. Thanks so much for watching, I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you again next time.